you've had parents who were narcissistic or resented parenting or, were distracted or mentally ill, you may already have had that trauma that implies that later it's harder to connect, right? So those attachment disorders that I was referring to earlier. There's 3 kinds of attachment disorders. There's the avoidant attachment disorder. So what does that mean? So a healthy attachment looks like this. When you return home, your child feels so securely attached to you. You've gone out for an hour or 2 for dinner with your spouse. You come home and your baby is happy to see you, and the reunion, what we call the reunion, is a beautiful reunion. The baby is joyful and happy, and that's healthy attachment. It means that you've made your baby feel so safe and secure because you are there primarily and have prioritized them the majority of the time as the primary attachment figure, that when you come home, your baby welcomes it. But what we're seeing is more and more children developing attachment disorders because their parents are pushing the limits of how much they can leave those babies and putting them in things like institutional care and leaving them for long hours at a time and traveling for their fabulous careers and their fabulous lives at ages when babies really can't tolerate that kind of separation. When the primary attachment figure, usually the mother, comes home and the baby turns away from you and turns toward the babysitter or just turns away, that baby has the beginning of what's called an avoidant attachment disorder. Now that's correlated later on with things like depression and difficulty forming attachments later on. The next kind of attachment disorder is called an ambivalent attachment disorder, and the mother then comes home and the baby clings to the mother for dear life because the internal voice in that baby is, my mommy's going to leave me again, so I have to hold on to her. Now that baby is fractious and can't be soothed and will not let go of that mother, holding on for dear life. What I call like the rhesus monkeys did to the wire cages, right? And that's correlated later on with anxiety in youth. The disorganized attachment disorder is different than the other 2 in that the other 2 have a strategy. So think of an attachment disorder as a strategy. A child who's left for too many hours by their parent, or whose parent is physically present but emotionally checked out. That baby has to cope, has to have a strategy. Turning away from the mother is a strategy. And the internal narrative is, my mommy isn't present for me, isn't here for me, won't be there for me, I can't trust my environment. And that baby says, and I'm gonna have to cope on my own, what we call learned helplessness. The ambivalent attachment disorder, that baby is, the strategy is, I'm gonna hold on because if I don't hold on, she's gonna leave again. Disorganized attachment disorder is the hardest to treat because the baby has no strategy. So the baby cycles through many strategies. The baby will go from clinging to avoiding to being enraged and even slapping or hitting the mother and then cycling through again. And that baby that develops a disorganized attachment disorder, those babies, it's correlated later with borderline personality disorder. And we're seeing a huge rise in borderline personality disorders. And those are the kids who are cutting themselves, who are trying to commit suicide. We have a mental illness crisis, the likes of which we've never seen in history. And it has everything to do with how we're raising our children.
You seem pissed off under that calm demeanor.
Pissed off? Yes, I suppose I am. I'm not pissed off at the people. I'm pissed off at a society that is lying or not really educating or telling parents the truth.
So there's 4 attachment disorders. Avoidant, secure, ambivalent, disorganized.
Well, one, secure isn't a disorder. So there's secure, and then there's 3 attachment disorders. Yeah.
Avoidant, ambivalent, disorganized.
Yes.
How does that manifest when you're an adult? So how would I know, because I can relate to some of these, and I'm wondering how that would then manifest in my relationships or my life as an adult, outside of the obvious mental health, situations.
So an avoidant attachment disorder would be someone who can't form meaningful and deep connections, can't commit, has difficulty committing, has difficulty trusting in the intimacy and the depth of intimacy in a relationship. An ambivalent attachment disorder would be someone who's highly anxious, someone who clings to you, calls you, maybe a woman you dated in the past who called you 5 times a day to check on you and was worried that you'd be the little fish that swam away, and they suffocate the people they love because they're afraid to let go. Disorganized attachment, borderline personality disorders, they tend to be very emotionally volatile. There's a lot of anger there, and there's a lot of self-harming behavior there.